Hello, everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. This is your extra show for the week. My name is Cammy Bell. I am your host, as always. It's been a tough week in the life of Rangers, so I thought I'd bring along someone who will not only give me a sound view of the world, but also interject it with some very, very dry humour as well. We normally wheel him out when times are bad. I've got first reserve on him this week, and that is my chum from Ayrshire, Andy McGowan.
Thanks, Cammy. Yes, it is I, the prophet of aftermath. That's my job in life now, or my job at Heart and Hand anyway.
Yeah, you get a tough gig, and listen, I'm not the one, by the way, who relies on you all the time. Edgar absolutely has that mantle, but for me, I just enjoy talking to you because you like to provide an air of sensibility when things seem a bit chaotic. Is that fair?
It wasn't fair on Sunday, I'll tell you that right now. But I don't know. Maybe I'm just getting a bit long in the tooth, Cammy. Maybe that's the secret to whatever your class sensibility is.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. We won't go too much into the Queen's Park disaster, as I'm calling it at the moment, because I spoke at length with Martin Ramsey about it on Monday's flagship show, Andy, but I'm keen to get your take on, obviously, the result itself, the performance, and to use your own terminology, the aftermath of what's been going on. It's been radio silence from Rangers really since last Sunday. The correct thing to do, in my opinion, because any post that you put up about anything, I think I saw the other day it was Bobby Russell's birthday and we didn't put a post up for it. And whilst I appreciate that it creates a vacuum and the fans are filling that vacuum, anything that Rangers do at the moment on social media, they're just going to get ripped apart in the comments.
Yeah, in life, listen, life isn't lived on social media as important and as big a part it plays in our everyday business as usual. We forget it's not real life. The real life is what happens in the rooms and in the dressing rooms and in the offices of Rangers. To answer your question about what I thought about Sunday, I thought it was a generational result. And by that, I mean it's one that we'll be talking about 20, 30, 40 years' time. I think that the performance itself was symptomatic. I mean, it wasn't like a disastrous performance in terms of creating things and all the rest of it. That we should have won that game. And if you played it another 99 times, I think we probably would have. One of the shots that went in would have got a wee break, a set piece would have worked. Something would have happened. But the longer the game went on, the more I'm thinking this is a problem. And when they scored, I'll no lie, I thought we're in serious bother here because I can't see us scoring. And then the penalty, even before the penalty was taken, I turned around at my pals and I said, the way the day's going, there's no guarantee this goes in. And then as the referee's delaying it, and you just get that feeling. And it's almost written in the stars that was going to be the result that day. And I know it sounds kind of weird and wonderful and it's no base in reality, but that's what it felt like. It was never going to be our day. The problem is, though, that it's absolutely emblematic, symptomatic of the Clement issue, which has been breaking down teams and adapting and finding solutions against teams that, let's face it, we would maybe say 10 men by the ball, but they're just well set up defensive teams like Dundee United at home, like Motherwell for a lot of the game away from home, like Queen's Park did, which other does that, Kilmarnock away. Games like that where we just seem to huff and puff. We just do not have any contrast. You know, there's nothing changes. Subs come on, nothing changes. We try the same things. We have the same patterns of movement. We rely on the same players. And that's the problem, is that we've not got enough variation and solutionising. And we could have a whole podcast series, Cammy, on why that's the case, but I don't think it's too far to say that depth of squad is a big thing. You know, consistency is one thing, but consistency for me comes through depth of squad and being able to bring players in, take players out and not lose much. And it's the same for the bench. So it's a big change in the dynamic for Clement, because I think after getting top 8 in the Europa League, which, you know, cannot be sniffed at, you can't take that for granted. In the manner we did it against the teams that we had to play, you can't just wash that away and say, well, it doesn't count because of something else. But that was his saving grace at that moment in time, because it was kind of papering over the cracks of what's happened domestically. This result washes everything away, unfortunately for him, because it's the old adage, you'll never forget how you feel. You'll forget things that happen, but you will never forget how you feel, and how we felt after that game very much ends up at his door. The players let him down badly, right? There was a couple of players in that game that, under different circumstances where we're more agile in the transfer market, wouldn't kick a ball for Rangers again, right? You can guess who they are, but they let him down badly. But I go back to, right, we're playing Queen's Park, find a solution. Swap Cherny from one side to the other, try and get to the byline, tell Jefte to go outside his man. Don't bring on Yilmaz, who hasn't crossed a ball since he signed, really, as the guy to come on and win the game. For stuff like that is no help in his case. So we're in uncharted territory. I said that a couple of pods ago. Uncharted territory for Rangers, because the manager is still alive when all metrics that you would observe tell you this guy should be gone. But it's a perfect storm. It's the financial situation. It's the what do you do next situation. It's the learning from what's the word that John Bennett used to use, rinse and repeat of sacking Gio, sacking Beale, then do you go and sack this guy and all. So I understand why Rangers are silent. I also, if I take off my Rangers supporter hat and put on a cold, pragmatic hat, understand why they've not sacked him yet. We've got a couple of games, one of which we're going to talk about today. Tynecastle, Rugby Park, St Mirren at home, who gave us major problems last time. What, by sacking him, really the only tick in the box I see is the bloodlust we've all got from just now, which is give me a head. Give me a head for that result. That's about the only thing I can see. And whether he stays for another month or 2 months, really, what difference does it make? That's where I'm at. And that's apathy talking, Cammy. I don't know about you, but that's a kind of shrug of the shoulders in that, you sack him, nothing really changes. You may get a wee bounce for a wee while, but we've got a bigger picture at play here. We need to get our shit together so that this summer the squad gets enough quality in that we can hit the ground running next year. And actually, listen, winning the league is a big tall order for us as it stands just now, but competing for the league isn't it? We shouldn't be 13 points behind us, behind Celtic. If we were 5 or 6, it changes the perspective completely. So it's all the things put together. Complex doesn't start it. You've got a new CEO coming in. He's not been here 2 months, Cammy, right? And going back to social media, you're reading things about, folk are saying this and saying that. But the guy's got to come in as a CEO, as a professional CEO with a cool head, evaluate everything, look at the whole which went before he arrived, and decide when the time is right, because quick decisions are not always the right decisions. So he'll be sitting on his council just now, weighing everything up, and eventually he has to come up with the solutions because he's the CEO. But it's far too early to be turning around and looking at him and pointing a finger. In fact, it's ridiculous to do that, in my opinion. It's 2 months, for Christ's sake. So, again, we go back to the support and ask for clemency. Again, we go back to the support and ask for patience. Again, we go back to the support and ask for their money, because we've still got to go and see Rangers, and we still do it, and there's still demand for tickets. And we've a kind of critical point coming up for me as a season ticket renewals. I think a lot of what we do cynically will be with that in mind. And again, that's why I go back to you sack him now and you bring in a caretaker, or you give it to somebody, and by the time the renewals come around, we've not improved, or there's been some poor results. The momentum that's required for fans to commit will be skewed. So therefore, from a marketing, from a cynical, from a mercenary money point of view, the club's got to be careful how they play that. And that may not be what we want to hear, but that's the realities of life. So that's where I'm, Cammy. Still awake?
Listen, following every word intently. When you speak, I listen. There's absolutely no doubt around it.
I know that's so true.
It certainly is. Come on now. So there's a fair bit to unpack there, all of which I think I'm in agreement with. The only challenge I would put back to you, Andy, is I understand I think every Rangers fan now understands the financial situation at the club. I don't subscribe to the myth that we can't afford to sack him financially, because I believe we can. I think that we are gun shy in that area. And the only reason why I say that is because I think that the club, they are going to get into a position where they're going to let him go, whether it's now, whether it's, June, really is, it's down to where the club are at the moment. Because you mentioned there about the legacy of the Queen's Park defeat, which I do agree with, because now we're at the stage where we can be cheated out of a League Cup final. We can concede a last-minute winner to Man United at Old Trafford, and shy of a miracle in the Europa League. I just think that the highest of highs will not beat the lowest of lows under Philippe Clement. The difference between the situation, for me, and this is just my tuppence worth, but the situation between the fans, the club, and Philippe Clement doesn't taste the same as it did under Beale and Van Bronckhorst.
No.
Because
You're right.
we got to a point where we did pull the trigger, and it had to happen. I'm not revising those decisions because they were right at the time, and I still stand by them. But they were acted upon promptly, is probably what I can say. Whereas this feels a lot like death by 1,000 cuts, because I've spoken to a number of Rangers fans since last Sunday, talking about the away games that you've mentioned. So not just Tynecastle, but as you say, Rugby Park, etc., even as far ahead as Parkhead. And the problem is now that, we will talk about Sunday in more detail in a moment. Even if Rangers win on Sunday, even if they win at Rugby Park, and to a certain extent, even if they win at Parkhead, I don't think it wipes the slate for him.
No.
So now we're at the point where he's not only behind the 8-ball and needing snookers, the ball is off the table. He's never, ever going to be able to recover this position. Now, I do not think for one single moment, and I'm fairly sure you don't either, believe that the board are deaf to that. I don't think for a single minute that they're ignorant towards the sentiment amongst the fans. Now, you are absolutely correct. I think that what may prompt action may come in terms of not just the season ticket renewals and Managerial renewals. I wonder if the gauge may come earlier than that, and it might be take up of the European tickets when we get back into the next round of the Europa League, which will be mid-March. So it's not that far away. But it goes wider than that, as you know, because it's not just match-to-match season ticket holders. It's hospitality. It's all of the other revenue streams that come into the club that if they are impacted or infected by how the support feel at the moment and the take-up is not there, then I think that will prompt action. And it wouldn't be beyond the wildest of imaginations to suggest that Rangers will make some sort of announcement prior to the season ticket renewals coming out.
I think so.
And that's I get it, but then I think the challenge that we've got to now is I don't think the Rangers board know how to be able to take the next steps of action, because and I understand this, right? I suppose I'm not really explaining it that well, but I suppose what they need to understand is what step B. We know what step A is. Step A is, okay, managerial change, restructure within the dugout. But what's step B? Because I don't subscribe to this theory that, and I'm pulling names out of thin air, right? But we remove Philippe Clement tomorrow and we bring in Stephen Davis. So Stephen Davis wins every game between now and the end of the season domestically, but we are still in the same position, i.e. second place. I still firmly believe that if that happens, Rangers fans would say, just give it to him. And now we're back at square one. Whereas what I'm hoping we are doing, maybe surreptitiously, but we are looking at potential replacement options now. And that is then coming back into, okay, so manager leaves at the end of the season. Final league game of the season. We're done. We're dusted. Everybody, shakes hands. And then we announce the new manager. So the pre-announcement to that maybe we are now looking to theoretically make a change. It'll happen in the next couple of months. And that's what I wonder, how the board is strategising that.
So conventional wisdom's out the window, because what's went before is not where we are, and that's what I'm saying, we're in uncharted territory, because conventional wisdom for any period of Rangers history would be that he would be gone, right? You've got, so you're spot on, it tastes different, that's a great way of putting it, because in many ways the board, and this might not go down well with listeners, right? And this is me again being a wee bit dispassionate and removed from my normal being
and
a Rangers.
A board lackey.
Listen, the board's changed. That's I don't know what I'm the. So they've actually got to operate in a wee bit of a vacuum to make sure they get the right decisions here. And what I mean by that is that yes, they need to listen to the fans. Yes, they need to be cognizant of the drum beats coming for the wider support. But they also need to be very careful, as you say, of step A, step B, step C, right? Because it's slowly dawning on us as a Rangers support, this isn't a quick fix. So I'm always the one that used to say, Fitba can change fast. It can change fast, but the more I say that, the more I'm like, you need to throw double sixes all the time for it to change, particularly because of the situation Celtic in terms of financial strength and absolute dominance and rhythm and everything, right? So so the board, I'm saying the board, Patrick Stewart and his new chairman, is it Fraser Thornton? Is that his name?
Yeah, new chairman, yeah.
The new chairman, let's call him new chairman. They obviously have to corral and make the right decisions, and I dare say that's going to be in conjunction with investors who we understand to have taken a wee bit of step back and empowered the CEO, otherwise there's no point in the changes at the board level. Because there's ramifications, and that's why I'm thinking they're like, right, if we get rid of Clemontage, is it the right thing to do? Okay, it satisfies us, but will it change? And we had a very, very hot debate with David Edgar weeks, maybe months back. It might have been if they come out, I can't remember. We were talking about Clement, and after the Kilmarnock away game, I watched that game and I came out to it, and that what I'm saying about how it made you feel. I came out thinking, he's done. He did not have even close to an answer there. And therefore, that's the beginning of the end, right? And it was only a matter of time. I wasn't calling for him to go there and then, but I did say, look, that's the end for him, because there's nothing going to change, because we've seen it too many times, and we have since. But I had a hot debate with David Edgar, and I think it was David Marshall, I can't remember, but they ganged up me, because what I was saying was, if you get rid of the guy mid-season, even now, but certainly back then, and you get a caretaker in, you have then got a giant ticking clock in the Rangers support saying, tapping their watch saying, where's the new manager? Who's it going? How far are you done? Have we done interviews? There's this immense pressure that comes from the expectation of the Rangers support saying, we want an answer and we want it as soon as possible. We've seen it before. We've seen it with the Murty situation. Remember when we were going for McInnes, and eventually that was a hellish time of uncertainty. So you bring in a caretaker manager, you've got that hanging over you. Caretaker manager does well. What do you do then? Because as you rightly say, if it was a Stephen Davis or a popular character or somebody that gets a wee bit of support for the tangible support for us, there would be words to say, well, do we change it? Do we keep him? And that's not the answer, because then what you've done is you fell into it by accident, because you've created a caretaker manager situation, and then the guy does well, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, he's quite good, we'll keep him then. That's not a rational recruitment process. That's not a rational succession process. That's not using the likes of COP and what we're supposed to be doing here as a club, which is future-proofing us and making sure that step B you talk about is always somewhere in the mind and we're ready for it. So I think we need to kind of make our peace with the idea that, come on, it might be about to the end of the season. And I think I've always spoke about redemption. I've always said, look, to my mind, he's pretty much done. I've said that a couple of times, and it was just the degree of how done he was. But I've said there's always redemption. And for a wee while there, the Europa League and a couple of the performances, certainly the Celtic victory at New Year, they were looking like inroads towards a redemption. And realistically, we're looking at something that is pretty hard to do. You're looking at going beyond that Europa League tie we've got lined up, because they're all, if we're being honest, we think they're winnable. it's about going to semi-finals then, isn't it? You've then got Celtic twice still to play, so it's about beating them at Ibrox. But more importantly, the first game is at Parkhead, so you've really got to take something for there, or you've got to turn up, and you've got to, if we get tanked there again as we have in the past, then it's just, stain upon stain upon stain. So the idea that he could have redemption now is very, very much an uphill struggle for him. Whereas a matter a couple of weeks ago, after the top 8 finish, the door was open to redemption, and that's why he spoke about it in the Queen's Park press conference thereafter. He said something along the lines of, 3 years ago, I had people behind me. Nah, it's a tall order for him to pull this round and go into next season, and therefore the board must, I'm saying the board, but Coppin, whoever's in charge of the research and the recruitment, they must know that they have to get their ducks lined up. Ideally, you want to tell somebody, we want you, start watching the team so that they come into it with their eyes open and make forward planning for next year. Do you know, it could be that Clement's pragmatic enough to know that himself and has a handover period. He's won enough money, 30 grand a week is a price worth paying for that handover and having an orderly handover, like kind of the Advocat situation. He saw the writing in the wall at that time as well. But really, really difficult time for everybody at the club, including the fans. And there's a lot of challenges to be risen to, and unfortunately, they have to rise to them, because what happens next has got a fair chance of dictating where we are for the next 5 years.
Yeah, and there's an interesting point, which I think I've also seen getting discussed in terms of the review that Patrick Stewart mentioned a couple of months ago that we were going to do throughout the club's processes, throughout the club departments, etc. And I think because of the situation that we're in, and I hesitate to use the word crisis, but if it isn't one, then Christ, it's in the post. That would then lead to allowing the board to make a decision, or urging the board to make a decision about the manager. It won't. That's not what it's for. The review is effectively coming in to look at any wastage, to see how we can drive efficiency. And this is why, when it was announced at the time, and I'm fairly sure you were the same actually, I applauded it. I thought it's long overdue, because we know that there's financial holes within how the club is run. Now, there's a number of different things with this. I'm going to steal your thunder a little bit here, because I know that you are about to say this, but there is absolutely a legacy effect from 2011, 2012 coming into that. And also, the challenge you've got when you've had such managerial turnover as we've had within the last number of years is that you get a new guy in, he comes in with his own ideas, his own approach, however he wants to do it. When he's then exited, 12 months later, those things don't go with him. They probably try and change to suit the new guy that comes in, and either he'll do it differently, or he'll just stop it, or he'll dial it up. It depends on obviously what happens. This is independent of all of that, done by independent auditors as well, which is exactly what needed to be done, because it can't continue this idea of we've had people in place, and because they're a known face around the club, and because they've always been there for ages and ages and ages, if it's not efficient, then we need to change it. It doesn't mean, by the way, and I'm not saying about the individual, because I don't think that this review will come in and say you need to sack that guy, you need to do this. What you need to be able to do is say you are draining money here, and as a result of that, that is impacting you here. So you're moving it from column X to column Y, and column Y will help get you into a better foothold in terms of what you're trying to do in the park, club stability, however you want to dress up. The other thing that I've kind of seen is, I think that there's some fans who are anticipating, they're almost looking at this review and the results as a bit of an open kimono. It's not going to work like that either. Effectively, what's going to happen is Rangers will get the report, they will make changes where they feel it is feasible and where it's affordable and where it can work, and others they're going to have to put to the side. But we're never going to see the full report, in its transparency. We will see the changes that happen, and we won't hear about the ones that we didn't act upon or didn't hear about, because the club will make the decision about how to move forward with it. So that sounds a bit harsh, but I am glad that it's happening, because it shouldn't matter who the manager is. This is about outside of the manager's purview. It is about, as you say, the structure. It's about the ways of working, the methodology used. And as I say, I don't care who the manager is at that point. This is about, as I say, an efficiency exercise.
So you use the word stability there, and we're getting a bit, digging into why are we here, and maybe that's a question we should ask, because I've got a bit of animus. Is that the word? Wish Edgar was here to tell me what it meant, but animus towards James Bisgrove, and I'll tell you why. He was handed a golden opportunity by John Bennett, I'd imagine, right, to become the chief executive at a very young age. Based on what he achieved as a commercial director, which I thought he'd done really, really well at, right? Just as a wee aside, the Castor deal now looks like a fantastic piece of, vision, right? Regardless of what you think of the strips and the quality at the start, just now I listened to the podcast with the young founder of Castor, and for us to be in at the start of that is something that I thought would happen, right? That's by the by. So I like Bisgrove as commercial director. He got this opportunity. I was open-minded to him because I like to have a young, hungry chief exec with good ideas. He started the fans forum. He was talking about the standing section. He moved the Union Bears. This was forward thinking. And then he went to Saudi. And person to person, can't blame him. You've got to do what's right for your family, what's right for yourself and financially and everything else. But I thought he let us down, and John Bennett and his fellow board members, tremendously, because exactly what you're talking about there, Cammy, in terms of somebody implements something and then they're gone, and then you've got somebody else comes in, they've got fresh ideas, they want to do fresh things, it costs money to do these fresh things, you're then bolting them on to pre-existing commitments and all that. So there was nothing really came of the Bisgrove era because it was so flipping short, to be quite honest with you. John Bennett then has to take the lion's share of responsibility. That's why he's not here, because the pressure of that, the court and everything else, impossible situation for him. He took on too much.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Andy, as well, just to probably bring that more into a world that you and I are more familiar with from a corporate perspective. This happens in every business. It's not exclusive to a football club. It happens in every business.
People come and people go, and it's what they leave behind. And the shorter their tenure, usually the worse it is, because it's like a rupture. You don't have any continuity whatsoever. So the culture of our club just now is zero continuity, and we're trying to stabilise it. And this is why the problem we come on is such a big problem, because I would love to have continuity in the dugout. And I think they've tried to persevere, but the Queen's Park result just makes it such a hard thing to continue. And the fans are gone. The fans are lost. The majority of fans, very, very few fans are going to be sitting there saying, yeah, give him a chance, it's gone. They know how it made them feel. It's an unacceptable result. There's no coming back for it. And as I say, the redemption road is now so fleetingly slim and unlikely that there's only one way this ends. It's just a way of making sure it happens to the benefit of us as a club most. How do you maximise the opportunity and minimise the fallout? So, to your review thing, good CEOs come in and kick the tyres. This is why I'm saying after 2 months you cannot talk about Patrick Stewart. Give him a chance. He's got to see what's what. He's got to feel the culture. He's got to speak to everybody. He's got to speak to the fans. I know he was getting stick for getting into hospitality suites before anything else. I was like, good. I want somebody that's willing to get in and face fans, whether they pay a lot or they pay a little. It doesn't matter as long as there's action. And he can't do it on one day, so it's progress. So you've got to give the guy a chance and judge him on what he's judged against, which is what happens next season, the summer. What was the turnover? 80, 90 million £90 That's where it's supposed to be, right? That's what we were hoping for. When I did the accounts, when we were in the wilderness and trying to explain and, how we were front loading and all this, I always said, look, once we get to 70, 80, 90 million £90 of turnover, we're back. This is where we are. But here we are, and we can't make it work. And it's because it's not really because of the wage bill. The wage bill was getting cut, but I knew the wage bill would get cut. 2020. Somebody tell me, look, the wage bill was going to come down. And there's more to it than that. And that is why this review is important, Cammy, because as you say, there's obviously money being duplicated or processes that cost money being duplicated or wastage or inefficiencies. We need to strip all that out and make sure that we're getting the most bang for our buck, because at 80 or 90 million pound, we should be competing with Celtic. And I know that sounds contrary to what a lot of folks say when they've got a bigger turnover, but the only difference then is Champions League money and what they've got in the bank for what they've built up. 80, 90 to 100 million pound is where Rangers and Celtic would be if they're both in the same competitions. There's no that much a difference that makes it a pipe dream to compete.
But your point, and again, whilst I'm not certainly comparing ourselves to Bayern Munich, given the fact that Celtic have just played them, I think to your point, my feeling is always that we can make Celtic look good by comparison because we failed to turn up too many times against them in recent history. But when they play against a European team that I would be fairly comfortable that we could certainly match or beat, they then start to get shown up.
Yep.
And that's where I suppose that's the vicious circle, because you want to be able to progress on those levels, but whilst you have this changeover, whether it's every 12 months, 13 months or whatever, you have a vacuum of a board structure, again, to the manager's defence, that he had for, the first half of this season. That's difficult to operate in. Aye. So there is, I suppose that there is a progression being made in the fact that we have appointed a CEO, we have appointed a chairman, but those appointments don't fix things overnight.
No. I totally agree. I had a lot of sympathy with come on. He had the Hampden debacle. He had a vacuum above him. He was a figurehead for the entire club, to be quite honest with you. And I think that had a lot to do with the new contract, if we're being cynical, right? But it's no progress for there. This is a problem. On the part, we've still got the same failures that we had back then, so the excuse doesn't wash quite as much. We need to allow the club to breathe once again, and it's a big ask because patience. If there's any club, any support in the world shows patience, it's us, and we have walk to walk. This is the thing that I always come back to, that we can self-praise might be no honour, but I think when we look back over what we've endured since 2012, you can't say that we were found wanting, and we need a wee bit more of it, unfortunately.
Yeah, but to that point, though, I think that's where it leans into where we are just now from a frustration, because people have stumped up cash. They've had to make really tough decisions in order to justify season ticket money year on year, their household budget, etc. And I think that's why and it's probably where I think a lot of fans' frustration rightly comes from, is that an incredible loyalty is certainly to be admired, but I think previous boards and where we've been at before, it's almost been expected and taken for granted. Well, that's the difference.
Possibly. I can't tell, because you don't know unless you're in the rooms and you're listening to conversations, but the Rangers support are in a, how can I put this? They're in a groove in terms of their loyalty. And the season tickets, I don't expect, even if the rest of the season goes disastrous long, I don't expect big drop-offs in season ticket uptakes. But if it was to drop off 5%, then that's huge. Right? For us, that's a huge shift. So don't be, I'm sure the board aren't either. They'll not be fooled by, it's only went down 5% uptake. That's a lot for us. Where you can sense, or where you should be gauging things, is applications for away games, right? You usually get the Be My Gears email saying, so 13,000 folk applied for this and 4,000 got a ticket, whatever. That's a good gauge, because that's your hardcore supporter that applies for away games and would go to see Rangers on a Wednesday night in Aberdeen and stuff like that, right? That's a good idea of how their feelings are translating to actions. The merchandising, it's harder to sell things when people only want to wear the badge. I don't know about you, but I had a lot of the pride I had. I've always been kind of indefatigable about being a Rangers fan. Didn't matter who or how bad we were or where we were in the leagues. I always stood my ground no matter who I was talking to about Rangers, because I always had great pride in being a Rangers fan. And the European side has given me a lot of that recently, right, when Celtic have been winning them domestically. But on Sunday after that, I was like, Jesus, that is hard to stand up and fight your corner. That's a bad position to be in. So that affects things like, will you buy merch? Will we buy merchandise? So Rangers will be sensitive to all this kind of stuff just now in the short term. What they've got to watch is it doesn't become a long-term trend and folk walk away from the club. And this is why what happens next is so important, because it's not just got to be the right decision, it's got to be inspirational, right? And I'm not talking about, let's do a Gerrard, and we've got to see something where we can, like, right, I can see the sense in that, we're excited by it. The players are central to that, and this is why what we do in the transfer market is integral. It's why I am totally nonplussed about who leaves, right? We've talked about Hadji. Hadji's been great since he came back. Time's up, got to go, because that game on Sunday, no in isolation, but would we miss him? Could we do better than him? Probably. So I'm not just picking on Hadji. We've got Bajrami there as the same thing. We've just paid big money for him. He's got to become a senior player. Totally missing the Sunday, and before that he's been fleeting for as good a football player as he is. So I'm totally open to any player going, apart from Igaman, right, for obvious reasons, because he's an exciting young player. I'm open to anything that happens football-wise in terms of personnel, because I want to be excited. And whether we're right or wrong, the unknown, if you don't know any better, you get excited. Right? We always sign players and we don't know who they are, and you get excited with them because you know what comes next is unwritten. So there's a lot of work to be done. There's a lot of soul searching to be done in the boardroom, in the dressing room, and in the support. And they need to make sure that there's some kind of vision or feeling of renewal and hope. I've been through Souness, I've been through Gerrard, but I've also been through other things like Jock Wallace and, not quite old enough for John Gregg. The right appointment can invigorate and create the momentum that acts as a launching pad for success. It can quickly fizzle out as well, and that's why we've got to make sure we get all this right. And I'll go back to it, I'll say it again. The key to this is Rangers support as well. We've got to go with it. We've got to understand, and we've got to support. And that's hard today when you're getting kicks in the balls like the Queen's Park game. It's a big ask, and the board are at the mercy of the support. They've got we can decide whether this works or no, because if there was any kind of even quasi boycott, really, really hurt us and set us back even further. I don't think it's a solution. I think we've got to keep the money flowing. I've got to keep the support going. It's nowhere near where we were mid-spiv territory. It's not that situation. This is a footballing issue more than an off-field issue for me.
Well, it wouldn't be fair for us to discuss Queen's Park and then ultimately a visit to Tynecastle on Sunday without pointing the finger at some of the players, some of whom obviously you've mentioned. An absolutely dire performance from the players last Sunday. They are going to go to Tynecastle with Hearts in a great run of form, unbeaten in their last 8. They are through to the next round of the Scottish Cup, having a hard-fought win on penalties in Paisley on Monday night, Andy. I'm going to be honest with you, when we've discussed our away form across the course of this season on this and other pods, I've used the word opportunity a lot. I'm actually at the stage now where I feel the players need to give us, forgive the pun, but a hearty response in terms of how they want to show how much that defeat means to them, because they will know how much it's meant to us. And they're going to play a Hearts team which is banging for. They will be loving the fact that we've come out. I think Neil Critchley mentioned in his press conference that, sometimes it can be the wounded animal that's the most dangerous. As far as I'm concerned at the moment, Rangers have to be able to go out with a high tempo. They have to go out with a bloodthirst to win. Now, I'm not going to, again, be hypocritical of what I said before, because if Rangers win on Sunday, it does not, by any stretch of the imagination, change the optic at the moment. Everyone is still going to be pissed off about the Scottish Cup. Everyone will still want the manager out. Well, I say everyone, the vast majority. I do accept the fact that there are still people behind Philippe Clement. But as far as I'm concerned, those fans who are able to get that reduced allocation for Tynecastle absolutely deserve a response from Rangers, and it's very much on the players to make sure that happens.
It's about hope. You need to give something hope, a bit of optimism. I don't think we'll get Blood and Thunder. I think the days of Blood and Thunder are pretty much gone. I think they'll play more with the mind and the heart, to be honest. And if Hearts come out and play an open game, then that's better for us than it is playing against a team that sits in. I think we know that we're a far better counter-attacking team than we're trying to break teams down. So it'll be interesting to see what the set-up is, because even although it's Queen's Park, I was surprised to see Dessers on the bench. I thought we had hit upon something with Egerman and Dessers. The best of both worlds complement each other in terms of what they can and can't do. Even against Queen's Park, it was missing. And then when he came on, it was too little, too late. So I'll be interested to see how he sets up, because I think he likes, especially in the European format, he likes to use Bajrami off the striker, because for all his faults, he's fairly intelligent in the press. And he likes to create the traps that Clement talks about, where we win the ball back high up the park, and he is good at that. But I would domestically prefer to see two strikers, and I like Gigaman running at 4 feet deep. So I'll be interested to see what happens. They're going to have to be up for the physical challenge. I'll be interested to see if he plays Enciala or Fernandes, because it's when you think about games for foreigners to come in and see what they're made of, whether it's aerial bombardment, set pieces, long throws, physical, challenges, that'll be good for they two. I don't think he'll play both, but he'll play one of them, I think, to see where they're at. Enciala is a work in progress. He's excellent on the ball. His passing's superb, as far as I'm concerned. We've not seen enough of him yet to see if he can withstand the aerial side of Scottish football, the refereeing side of Scottish football, and the real physical tussles you'll get at away grounds like this. And Fernandes, he played last week and he looked fine. He was rangy, good pass of the ball, moved the ball with a tempo. We don't know anything more than that, but I'll be interested to see who he plays, if it's Suter and one of the two. So
I think he has to play Suter, and I think probably
play Suter. I think it'll be Suter and Enciala, because Enciala's earned it. But this is the thing. We're back talking about football here, right? And already, I hope you sense my enthusiasm, because I always find I look forward to watching Rangers, right? Maybe not the day after a bad result, but I always find there's something for me to get my teeth into and look forward to. And as perverse as that is, maybe that's the addiction that folk listening to this will recognise what I'm talking about. You can't walk away from it, and you want to see. You want a bit of hope, but you've also got that wee interest in players that you, as much as you hated them last week, you need them to do well and you want them to do well. So that's kind of where I'm at. Maybe that's soft and it's half our problem. We're too forgiving. But that's where I'm at.
No, I agree. I think the big thing for us is that we need to be able to. We need to get back on the horse, right? That's the most important thing. And for me, that's what the manager referred to after Queen's Park was, the outcome has to be, we have to win games. That's how you get people back on side. And he has that opportunity to do that on Sunday. So here I am back already using the word opportunity, but I'm going to say it's a necessity more than an opportunity. Andy, that will do us for this week on Extra. Thank you so much for coming along, my friend. You have been positive throughout. I don't know why you have this reputation.
Well, I know I'll end on a really positive note. If MD's that sick of Rangers that they might give me their Tynecastle ticket, get me on Twitter.
Right, okay. I'm sure you'll have an inbox full by the time
the 27 folk that got tickets will be like, aye, Andy, here, take one.
Yeah, I'll definitely do that, yeah. Thank you to our producers in London, nightly Paul Myers. Thank you to you all for listening. If you'd like to hear more from us about a whole range of Rangers shows, plus loads of other football content as well, head on over to our Patreon site, which is patreon.com/Heart and Hand. David will be back with the flagship on Monday to unpack the game at Tynecastle and any other changes that happen at Rangers. We will make sure that you hear it first. Thank you everyone for listening. We'll be back with you on Monday. Bye-bye.